Hi everyone, Kai here with you, and I have a video to share where I'm using Simon Says Stamp, A Beautiful Flower. I'm going to do something a little bit different for me. Today I'm going to use the stamp image, and I'm going to emboss with gold ink. Usually I pick a clear or a white, but this time I thought, no, switch it up a bit. So I'm going to heat emboss this. I'm stamping it right now with the Versamark ink. And I'm really making sure that I get a good impression, because there's nothing worse than having to go back and do it again. And I've got it done there. So I thought it might just be a nice change, and I've also used my machine, my scan and cut, to fussy cut it, because there isn't a die for this set. I don't believe there is. In any event, I don't have it, so I used my scan and cut to do the cutting. And for my background, I'm going to do a color burst. So used to calling it brush color burst background. And I'm sprinkling quite a bit on, and I'm just going to let it move all on its own. I'm not going to help it out at all. Actually, after I did this, I walked down to the post office to mail some handmade cards. And so I was gone for about 45 minutes, and it was almost dry by the time I got back. I do this kind of thing in my Misti often, as I just find it easy cleanup. And the magnets hold it down, so I don't have to use tape or anything of that nature. But I add more water after I've got the magnets in place, which you'll see. There I am. And just kind of let the color burst move on their own. I wanted to keep the movement in the background, which you'll see once the card is completed. I really like the way these play, these powder inks. I did one yesterday where I used the color burst along with distressed oxides, and geez, it made a really nice background. So I'm going to do that eventually again. So my background is pretty well dry, and the cutting is done on the image, and I'm going to color the flowers and the leaves with my Zig Clean Color pens. I'm using, first color I'm going to use is the yellow, which is number 050, and then I'm going to be using orange in 070. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to use some of the scarlet red, 023. And I'm going to use the light green, which is 045, and the medium light green, which is 041. So those are the colors that I'm using there. I do have a pink in that mixture, I think, but I decided not to use it. I wanted to keep it more in the orange tones, and the scarlet red color also has an orange undertone to it. So first what I do is I've laid down some of the yellow ink. I'm putting it on very lightly, so it's mixed with, there's quite a bit of water on my brush before I pick up the ink. I'm working on a piece of marble. It's a marble wall tile that I use to do this sort of stuff. I keep it on my desk all the time, and it's also what I use to take my photos. So it has a lot of duties, that piece of marble, and I I think it was $5 at the Home Depot, so there you go. Probably cheaper in the States. In any event, so I'm adding the yellow as I go along here. I'm doing the whole flower with this base color. And I don't make you watch the whole thing. Honest, I don't. Even though this video is longer than what I would have liked. I think I'm a slow painter. What I do is I take my time. There, I've jumped ahead. So after I've laid down the yellow on the two outer flowers, I add in the orange, which is what I'm going to start with now. All told, I've got about 4 or 5 layers of paint on the flowers and about 3 layers on the leaves. I didn't want to, there's portions of the image as well that the background are meant to be background, and I didn't want to take a chance by painting on this with the ultramarine blue. So I just colored them in the darker green, and I felt that worked fine for what I wanted to do here, and it looks fine, I think. I'm adding the color heaviest where the shading is going to be, and then I bring it out with a damp brush. I'm sure you've seen lots of people do watercoloring, and everybody seems to have their own way on how to do it. So I've almost finished the outer flowers. I'm now going to start on the center one, which is going to be in the scarlet color. Just to change it up a bit. And I do like the scarlet red with oranges. I think it's a nice kind of look. This is a, I believe it's a 6-inch stamp if you lay it like full out across. So I decided that I would make, at first I was going to make a longer, one of those long narrow cards with it. And then I changed my mind because I only have 8.5 by 11 paper, and that it was going to get too narrow and I didn't want to do that. So I ended by making this a 4.5 by 6.25 card, which still isn't too big. I don't like big cards. So this is still in a nice size, and it'll fit in envelopes that I already have. I leave part with some of the flowers. I'll leave as I'm going through it because I'm not sure what they belong to, the side flower or the front flower. This ended up belonging to the side flower, so I went back in with the colors. Just adding the final steps to the leaves. They all have yellow undertone. They start with the yellow. I add the light green and the medium green to finish them. I make sure all the stems are done with the green, the darkest, darker color of the green. And I'm kind of looking at it and saying, yeah, I think it's okay. The nice thing about the marble is you just wipe it up. So easy. So now I go on to the step of putting the card together. I have used a navy base, which is underneath, then matted in a gold matting cardstock, and then I will attach my watercolor piece that I did. But I hate seeing the white edges, so I'm going around all the edges with the Ranger Archival Manganese Blue. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment, "You are a treasure to me." I have also, it didn't show it on camera, but I've splattered the whole card with the whole blue with gold paint. Now I'm just going to make sure the placement of my sentiment before I stamp it. I'm using my mini Misti here. And this will also be heat embossed in the gold. I didn't want to have to move the marker or the pens underneath, so I just held the door with my hand. I wouldn't suggest doing that. You might bend the door. And I'm just going to heat emboss this and put it and attach the panel to my base. And then I'm going to add some dimension to the flowers by styling them with my stylus. I use my Misti for this as well. I have the cushion mat, the mouse mat, and I just turn it over to the black foam that's on the back and use my stylus to form and add dimension to the flowers. I go in a circular motion for the most part, except for on these small ones where you can't. And I'm using my biggest styler that I have. I add a little bit of styling in the center too, where the center of the flowers would be. So I go about and do that. And then I'm going to add some foam dots to the back of the card, so it'll stand up away from the background. That makes sense, doesn't it? Sometimes you say to yourself, what am I saying? I also do styling on this side of on the finished side. If I want a flower to kind of have a flip up or a leaf to have a flip up, I do it on the front side as well. So I'm going to put it all together, adding the foam dots, and then rather than adding sequins, I didn't want any colored sequins with it. There's already a lot going on. So I chose to add Nouveau Crystal jewel drops in clear. I could have also used the Sea Breeze, which I did yesterday, Both of them would be very nice with this. Just fussing as to where I want placement of it. So I had about, you know, odd is always better than even, so I had about 9 drops. I always seem to count. I've got 9 drops, and then the flower is 10, and then the sentiment is 11, so everything's on an odd. I don't like anything to be even. So I add the drops, and that about finishes this card for me today. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, you'll give me a thumbs up. It's hard to get those thumbs up, I'll tell you. But it's fun to do the video. They're just time consuming. So I hope you do enjoy it. And I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.